Hello there, my friends. It's good to be with you. Assalamu alaikum. I want to just share with you some of my thinking about this ongoing Gaza crisis, as well as the global response. Now, I think by this time I don't have to tell you how disillusioned, how in despair many of us feel for the ongoing theft and pain and suffering that is continuing in that part of the world. And you would have to be a very, very twisted person in your brain and in your mind to feel that those people have it coming to them. Absolutely. Only a brainwashed person, only a very narcissistic, only a demented person would see the pain and suffering of innocent children as, them deserving it in some way or another. So I'm going to speak to you, but still we cannot just sit here, cry, demonstrate, wave the flag of Palestine, post messages on social media. I mean, I've been getting these messages on all the chats, on my neighborhood chat, which is it's a 60% Christian or 70% Christian forum, my neighborhood forum. And we're getting just Gaza all over the place. And we're not a country that is without our own problems. We live in a city where there's massive crime. Weekends we get, murders, tens of murders. So it's not by no means a country bereft or without any serious suffering. There's a lot of poverty in my own country, in my own city. There's babies being killed, gang fights, shootings, people who can't afford to pay their rent getting thrown out on the street. We have massive, massive problems here. And the Muslims have almost like decided that Gaza is the only issue for them. And it's a big thing for me also. But let me just discuss this ongoing issue with you. You see, I don't believe... Let's talk identity first. Let's talk about identity, because this is going to be an important element in the bigger discussion here. What is an identity? You see, an identity beyond your name and your surname, because that's what silly people think is identity, or just on a shallow level, as Imran Hussein says, in a schoolboy level, that is identity. But identity from a psychological perspective, from a sociological perspective, what is your identity? Your identity is who you are. Now, what is that? What is that? Some of you are thinking, I'm going to take you into this slowly so that you'll understand where I'm coming from. Who are you means what is important to you. Who are you means what is important to you. Who is Anwar? Beyond the name and the surname, we want to know, who is this Anwar? And that means, probably in another way of in idiomatic language, is what makes Anwar tick. What makes you function? What gets you going? What is important to you? You see, that is your identity. What makes you get up in the morning? What makes you smile? What makes you happy? What drives you? What drives you? Yes, granted, many people are driven by the salary and by the 75-inch 8K latest television set, by getting a nice upgrade in their BMW. That's also something. That means if Anwar is driven by those things, then Anwar is a social climber. That is simple. Then we know what Anwar is. He's a I don't know if it's a common term anymore, but he's a yuppie. He's a social climber. He's busy elevating his status, his financial, his material status. He's like a Tate boy. I don't know if you get such a thing as a Tate boy, but he wants to be up there. He wants the glamour, the glitz. He wants the bling. Yeah, that's also something. That's also who you are. That's an identity. But I get the feeling the Muslim identity is not quite that. You see, that's why even with a guy like Tate, it's borderline whether he's really being accepted in the Muslim identity, because the Muslim identity is not about splurging wealth. That's why even the Muslims have a slight problem with these kings and princes in the Arab world. I think the Muslim identity is, by and large, and I'm speaking about the Muslim identity now, not my own identity, is about having a religious value system that they can believe in and that works for them. And Islam is that ideal. Out of Islam, they get the ideal that this is a value system, a religious system of ideals and values and practices that we can associate with, identify with. It will take us further. And I do think the people who call themselves Muslims that is their primary identity. Right? So you get other identities. You get Muslims who are not particularly heavy on the Islam thing. You get those Muslims, and then they might primarily identify as social climbers. So you might get Muslims who are not so interested in Islam, but they won't mess around with Islam. They don't rub the preachers and the priests up the wrong way. And so they're good to go. But then you get a Muslim guy who rubs the priests up the wrong way. He questions the value system. He questions, then he's messing with identity, you see. And oh yes, for the major part, the ordinary Muslim folk, men and women, professionals, artisans, menial workers, white collar, blue collar, all of them, they kind of have generally a trust in the official priesthood, the clergy, the people who are the custodians of what is Islam. You know, those people, the sheikhs, the maulanas, the muftis, the ordinary Muslim. And I've lawyer friends, and I have doctor friends, and I have not friends, family, and some friends, of course, Muslims. And I see in the attitude that when I meet these professionals, lawyers, doctors, dentists, whatever they are, highly educated people, right? People who went through a process of training how to think independently. Although they had that training, they still what is the word? They suspend that independent thinking when it comes to Islam. And then they can be a doctor, they can be a dentist, they can be a chartered accountant, they can be anything, a highly independently studied person. They then still think that the guy there in the mosque, the guy down the road who wears the funny headgear or the ancient headgear and ancient outfits, they know what Islam is, and I need to just shut up and listen to him. He's got it, man. He's got it. But he knows that person has a limited intellect, has a limited learning. If you speak to these people with the turbans and with the hats and so on, and I've got nothing against wearing those hats, but if you speak to them, you can quickly, within 30 minutes of speaking to them, understand that they are not intellectually deep. They are not critically minded. They are themselves only copycats of somebody else's work. Right? So the Muslim identity pretty much hangs on this class of priests. And even the educated people who live in America, who live in Britain, they live in London. They are doctors at university. And they will go to a mosque where there's a guy preaching that does not have any critical thinking, and they will accept that guy as their leader, as their priest. Makes no sense to me at all, but it happens, my brothers and sisters. And so I have to discuss this Muslim identity. Because what we are seeing in Gaza is an assault on that identity. This is not an assault on the Arabs. This is not an assault on Palestinians. This is not an assault on people of Gaza. This is an assault on that identity, on that Muslim identity. And that is why you see the flags of Palestine hanging on the mosques, because they can draw the connection. They see that there's a connection between the two, right? They see that the attack on Gaza is an attack on Muslims. So this assault on Gaza, this assault on Palestine, is not an assault on Palestinians, it's an assault on the Muslims of the world. And that is why the Muslim identity is being implicated here. When somebody comes and he slaps your brother, your sister, the person who shares your home with you, in the face, slaps them down, and then takes their cell phone and takes all their money in the wallet, and stands and looks at you and says, now, what are you going to do with it? What have you got to say? And you says nothing, and you walk away. And you're standing there with a gun in your hand yourself, and he's only standing there with a knife. You got more power than him. But you say, no, I've got no problem. No, I got no problem, man. No problem. That is what we call about what is happening with the Muslim world. It is a massive assault on the Muslim identity, and that is what I wanna inquire or look at or scrutinize. You see, the Muslims have taken their religion, their identity, this thing which is important to them, and I know how important it is to them. I feel it, I know it. When I make a video questioning, what is Salah, and I make a video questioning why are we raising Hadith to the level of Qur'an. Somebody else posted a video I saw on TikTok about Trawih, and did you get the chickens running and flapping their wings? It was really throwing a little bit of a rabbit or a jackal into the chicken's cage there. Because then you could see them. Why, you idiot? Why can you question Trawih? Trawih is this, Trawih. And all this guy said it's not in the Qur'an. And he got these people completely upset, personally upset. They flew into a rage. And that is the thing. You see, the Muslims, this identity that we have has been forged, has been shaped by people, and this identity has been maintained and, what is the other word now, reproduced by people who are not necessarily reliable. This identity has been reproduced, maintained, promoted, defended by people who are not necessarily reliable. People who claim to be the custodians of God's word, God's will, and the mind of God. That is what they project themselves as. These Maulanas, these priests, these whoever they are, how famous they may be, Mufti Menk, whoever they are, up there, famous with millions of support, Muhammad Hijab, whoever they are, they indirectly they claim to be the voice and the sword and the mind of God. That is, no matter what they say, that is how they present themselves. And including the little Maulana around the corner from you also, speak on a Friday at your mosque. Shia and Sunni. We have allowed a caliber, a cadre, a generation of men to present themselves as the authentic voice of God, as the authentic custodians of the religion of God, without checking them out. We've never checked them out. We've just assumed that these guys know, you know what, my mom and my dad and all these people in the mosque, 200 people, 500 people, 100 million people go for Hajj. These guys must be true. They must be genuine. The great Mufti, whatever his name is in Saudi Arabia, the great Mufti of Mecca, the great Sheikh al-Azhar, all these great people, including my little local franchisee, Maulana Sheikh around the corner, they're all part of this amazing establishment, this amazing custodian of Islam. My brothers and sisters, if you argue like that, then you must accept the Jews for accepting that the people who agreed on corrupting the Jewish faith, the Pharisees, then you must agree that the Pharisees were the custodians of the faith of Nabi Musa and Nabi Ibrahim. Then you must accept that the Sadducees are the custodians of the Jewish faith. And then you can't say, no, but all these Jews can't be wrong. Then you must accept that the Pope and the whole Roman Catholic establishment sitting in Rome are all, you can't question them, because they are so well established. They're everywhere. I mean, my priest can't be wrong. Father Henley can't be wrong. Father so and so can't be wrong. Sister so and so can't be wrong. They're all there. And look at the big buildings. Look at the big Catholic seminaries. Look at the giant buildings. Look at the glorious Pope. The Pope and his whatever you call it in Rome. You cannot then say that I take this bold stand of saying it's all nonsense, because that's what Muslims like to do. They like to say with easy as it is to breathe out a breath of air, they say, the Christian church, Catholics is all a fake. The Jews and others, it's all a fake. But when you say the Muslim establishment, all the Maulanas, the Sheikh al-Azhar, the Sheikh of Makkah, the Sheikh of, is all fake. Oh, kill him. Kill that guy. Kill him. You see what I mean? You have not even done the due diligence to see if these people are real. These guys in Saudi Arabia, they used to say music is haram and music is this and that. Now they asked the other day, they asked this king, the Pope of Makkah, whatever he is music haram? He says, no, not haram, no. After MBS declared, Jennifer Lopez and all these singers are now welcome there in Saudi Arabia, suddenly music, no, we didn't say music is haram. They don't you see there's a problem? They're switching the wishes of God, the will of Allah. They claim to be the mind of Allah, the voice of Allah, because that is what they claim. If they say what we say is really truth, haqq, it's the Sharia, then they are saying that what we say is Allah's voice. Don't you see the problem that they're changing Allah's voice so quickly? Or like in Iran, when they were imposing the scarf, and then suddenly now they decided no, they're not imposing it anymore. I love Iran. I agree with a lot of what they say. I take their position geopolitically, absolutely. And even I'm more inclined to some of the Ithna Ashari Aqidah in terms of rationality. But, I mean, to come and impose things and then say, no, we don't impose it anymore. You are making your claim to be the voice of God weak. And you are doing it because your voice is not the voice of God. Coming back to the Muslim identity. So what is happening in Gaza is the entire Muslim identity is being impugned. It is challenged. It is questioned. And Gaza is not a Gaza problem. Gaza is a Muslim problem. What do we mean by a Muslim problem? The Muslim identity is being impugned. It is being questioned. It requires re-examination. And what is the Muslim identity? The Muslim identity are those teachings, learnings, values, principles, ideals, legacies that we deem to be Islam. And who is the custodian of those legacies, ideals, values, principles, practices? It's this generation of priests, Muslim priests, the popes in Mecca, the high priest in Cairo, the Muslim high Sheikh al-Azhar, the local franchises. But believe me, the local franchises are nothing. When the senior franchises, the franchise owners in Saudi Arabia and in Egypt change their tune, or in India, when they change their tune, the local franchisees have to just quickly change their tune also. Like I saw here in South Africa. They were so against the black government. They were so against the black government, they couldn't stand the blacks ruling South Africa, the priests, the Muslim priests, until it became a reality that the black people shall rule South Africa. And we always fought for black government. I was one of those. Because I fought for human rights. I didn't fight for black rights. The fact is, most of the people in this country are black. And I can't say that I can't fight for them because they're the majority, so we must keep them in the dungeons of white people. I fought for that. Now they're making a mess of the government, granted, because there's corruption in the government. But that's a new fight. But these priests always, they shunned us. They excommunicate, they kicked us out of the mosques for wanting to fight for the human rights of black people. And then they suddenly changed their minds. When the rulers of this country became black, they invited the black guys to come and make khutbah in the masjid, non-Muslim guys. Then they started inviting the president to come and sit in the front row in the mosque. Atheists. Then it didn't matter. Then they softened. You see, they represent the voice of God, but they are their own voice. I don't know whose voice they are. They are the voice of the person who pays them the most. Now, you know what voice is that? You know what voice is a voice that dances to the dollars? Do you know what you call that? A learned man, a man who claims to be a representative of God's law and God's book and God's scripture, but he obeys a paymaster. Do you know what you call that? You call that a satanic person. You call that a satanic person. Now, Muslims today have adopted an identity that is shaped by satanic people. This is harsh. This is harsh, my brothers and sisters. This is very, very harsh. But the Muslim today in the world have adopted an identity that is shaped by satanic people who are beholden to paymasters, who serve the masters who pay them more. And even if they are not serving paymasters, they're serving people because they are scared of those people locking them up, paying them, killing them. So I come back to this Muslim identity. You see, the Muslim identity in the time of the Turkish rulers, it had a very Sufi sort of spiritual identity. During the Turks' rule, they didn't have the Salafi, Saudi, mad identity, right? This craziness, this chopping of heads. They had it, but it was a bit different. The Turks were more like about flower power Islam, like just sit on your mat and pray. Just make tasbih 1,000 times. Let the Sultan rule the world. And the Turks were more about, this kind of spiritual expression of Islam. Also corrupt. But it lasted longer because it allowed the Eastern Europeans to be Christian. It allowed the Sufis of Algeria to be Sufis. It allowed, the Arabs to be Sufi. Most of the Arabs used to be Sufi also in the peninsula. And that is how they managed to get away for 700 years. They basically just allowed the weeds to grow, the grass to grow wild. Now the Saudis come in the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and they say, no, we're going to mow the lawn. We're going to mow the lawn. We want Islam to be fixed now. We don't want that Islam. We're coming with Salafi Islam now. And we're going to invest our money, and we're going to invest whatever we have into the schools here. We're going to change all the preachers throughout the world. And the British loved it. The British loved it. The Americans loved it. The more you can stoke crazy Islam, the better it is for Europe and for Britain. Because Islam, if left to flourish in its pristine form, will infect the whole world, will infect the whole Europe. Nobody can resist the true Islam. It's impossible to resist a logical system that is based purely on acknowledging one supreme intelligent being that is there, that is merciful, that is benevolent, that is accessible to every person, that you don't need priests. You know, nobody can resist a system that allows you to be who you want to be, whether you're a Scandinavian, whether you are a Chinese, whether you are a Aboriginal person from Australia, from America. You can actually basically be who you want to be, but it calls for you for some standards on modesty, some standards on sexual behavior, some standards on business interaction, honesty in business, respect for private property. So Islam basically is very simple. It throws these basic parameters in, and then it says, now you do what you like, flourish, go for it. If you let that kind of Islam loose in the world, my friends, it will catch on like wildfire. But that's not the Islam, that's not the identity that we sit with. The identity we sit with is, why don't you go to Taraweeh? Now, why don't you wear your pants under your knees? Now, why do your women speak about Islam, but they don't have a scarf on their heads? You see? Now, why are you wearing a gold necklace? Why are you playing with a dog? Don't you know a dog will send you to hell? Why do you... all that nonsense. They add all this, and it's not just that, it's 1,000 things. When you go to the toilet, you say this. When you come out of the toilet, you say this. When you wake up in the morning, you say that. It's an imposition to such an extent that it crowds out the free spirit of the human being. And that is why I always say Muslims are angry people, because their spirit has been crowded out. They don't have a spirit anymore. There's no agency. Everything is decided for them. And that, my friends, is the root of the struggle of Gaza. The Palestinians, I'm very, very, my heart goes out for them, you know, the unfortunate people that must be killed. But instead of building, and instead of fixing, and instead of, you know, whatever they can do, every night now, they're standing, and you're going to judge me for saying this, but they're making Taraweeh. Yes, it's good to do that. But don't you have something better to do right now? There's people lying buried under rubble. You need to build homes. You need to fix shelters for your people. I mean, don't you have something better to do? I mean, Allah will excuse you even if Taraweeh is compiled. I see they shut down everything now to make Taraweeh at night. It's just an indication, and people will judge me for this, but judge me all you like, because I'm speaking the truth here. There are more important things to do. And the Prophet ﷺ, when he was in a position of war, he didn't go and say, wait, I must now first make Taraweeh now. You know, the corruption of the Islam that we gain is not about doing the right thing, it's doing the right thing at the wrong time. And that is my problem. It's making salah when you should be making war. It's making war when you should be educating yourself. It's giving your women an education instead of believing that they don't need an education. It's about teaching your children to think freely instead of teaching your children to follow the priest, memorize everything the priest tells him. My friends, that's why I say we need to liberate ourselves now, immediately. We need to, it falls on you and me. Very few of us, only 1,000 of you will watch this video in the next few days, and it falls on you and me, the few of us. But remember, if you convince one person of something, and that person convinces another person, sorry, if you convince 6 people, listen to this. If you convince 6 people that we need to revise our Islamic understanding. And those 6 people can each convince 6 people. And we can do that for 6 generations, for 6 people doing, for 6 levels. We've reached every Muslim in this world. Granted, not all of them will accept. 90% of them will probably die with this concocted idea of what Islam is, and they will believe, no, this is Islam, and Allah will show us all the truth. Allah will show us all the truth. You know where I know you are not on the true path? When you give me comments, is when you make angry comments, because only a devilish person becomes angry for talk. If you are getting angry for my words, you are part of the devil. Because I'm not saying here Allah, I'm not swearing Allah, I'm not swearing the Prophet ﷺ, but you have turned more people into gods. You've turned your mazhab into a god. You turned the Saudi king, the Saudi priests, the priest in your you've turned all of these people into holy cows. You are the devil, not me. So I will conclude there. The problem of Gaza is a problem of the Muslims. Our identity is impugned, is challenged. What are we going to do? Do we go back and say no, but we're going to keep on going with this identity. This identity is nothing wrong with. We're going to keep going with this Islam. This Islam that is formed and shaped by books that were written 300 years after the Prophet. We are going to keep with this identity that is parallel to the Qur'an. That is not the ethos of the Qur'an. Or we can say, let's go back to the Qur'an. Let's try the Qur'an first. Let's at least try, if we just do the Qur'an. What does the Qur'an say? The Qur'an says the leaders should not live, no leader, Muslim should not live in absolute wasteful existence as these people are living. Maybe there's something wrong with him. The Qur'an says your leaders are not to be paid off. The priests are not to sell their religion for a meager price. Maybe we should stop that. Maybe the Qur'an says those who are learned are not equal to those who are not. Maybe I should get the most learned people to be my Maulana and not the idiot. Maybe we should stop sending the idiots to become Maulanas. Maybe we'll get a better Islam. Those are the questions we need to ask. And I think you should be part of this process. Let us start right now. Let's send our youth, who are the most intelligent, the most free-thinking, and don't send them to Medina. There they get corrupted. There they get threatened. Create our own schools where we study the Qur'an, where we critically analyze the hadith, where we look at every hadith book critically. We need our own schools where we can do that. There's a good start already. This Sheikh Imran Hussain, he studied under the school that was started by Abdullah Alim Siddiqui, or his son-in-law. There's a good start there. We need to build on that. My brothers, I will end there. My brothers and sisters, we'll talk again next time. Assalamu alaikum.